So today we are going to learn how to paint America the Beautiful. So the colors that you need for today are red, white, blue, and black. However, yellow is optional if you want to join me in making just this little bit of a hint in the background. Also, the paintbrushes that you need are medium-sized flat brush and teeny tiny detail brush. Without further ado, let's get going. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is work on the sky in the background. So I'm gonna take my big brush and I'm going to dip it in the red. So we're gonna start working on our stripes. And then I'm gonna come in from the left about a third of the way. So 1, 2, 3, about a third. Now remember, this is the sky. So if you do it a little bit further, a little bit more, a little bit less, it's not going to matter. It's just the idea of the flag in the background. So about a third of the way in from the left-hand side, I'm going to come down about an inch or so, and I'm going to start doing a horizontal line across to the other side, all the way to the right. So I'm going to make it about an inch thick, and it's not a perfectly straight line on purpose. So this actually makes it easier for us. It's just kind of wispy red line, right? So it's just the idea of it in the background. So it's not a perfect line by any means, and we're doing that on purpose. So now from there, what we're gonna do is we're gradually, each red line that we're gonna put in, there's gonna get a little closer to the left. So it's gonna start a little bit closer in. So I'm gonna give it a space, so about the same width as my red line. And then I'm going to start again, but this time just a little bit further, closer to the left side. I'm going to do the same thing, go across, make it a little thicker. And it's just kind of wispy in there. I'm going to do another guy, leave a space, even closer to the left. And the next one even closer. So remember to keep on leaving that same space about, right? This painting is really forgiving when it comes to that. And then now I'm over here gonna hit my left-hand side, right? So I'm already past the halfway point. So now all the rest of my red lines are going to start at the very left side. Now these bottom ones right here, once you get to about a quarter of the way down, then the last two or the last one, whatever you could fit in, you don't really need to go all the way across because it's going to be covered with that land. So I'm just going to go about halfway in and then stop. So now this is the optional yellow part. So I'm just going to make a really light yellow. It's mainly white with just a dot of yellow in it. So it's very, very subtle. And then with this color, I'm just going to put it in so far just on the bottom left side. So in between the red, it's just a really subtle highlight in between my lines and putting a little bit of that really light yellow. So it's mainly white, just a dot of yellow. And then I'm just going to kind of work my way up at a diagonal until I hit about halfway up on the right. So it's not an exact science with this highlight. It's just a little bit in there. So mainly white, just a smidge of yellow. So it just kind of goes up at a slight diagonal to the right halfway. I'm going to put a little bit just below this long horizontal one right over here. Just a little bit of that yellowy color. So now all the other areas, not excluding this little part right here, we're going to leave this for our blue, but all these other white areas, we're going to now fill in with some white. You got the white of the canvas going on. Now we're just going to add some white paint on there. And again, don't worry about it being perfect. It's in the sky. It's just the idea of it. So it's kind of just wispy. And if you get too crazy with your white, like I just did, you could add in a little bit more red. Now we're going to work on our blue section. So I cleaned my big brush. I dipped it just in straight blue. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start putting it in this left top corner right here. But the thing is, see how we did this diagonal, create this diagonal line with our red stripes? So now we're going to kind of do the same thing with our blue, but it's not going to be a line that's just hard like that. It's all going to be horizontal strokes. So I'm going to start a little bit further out. So it's going to go out almost halfway. And then I'm just going to gradually have these kind of rough edges. And it's going to gradually come down and then stop right here, just a little bit lower than halfway. So I'm going to do these edges first, just so I know where it is. So some parts are going to kind of overlap the red lines, and that's okay. Just kind of wispy horizontal strokes back and forth, gradually coming at a diagonal till I get about a little bit lower than halfway, and then I stop, and then I'll go ahead and fill this whole section. So it's just kind of the idea of it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick with my big brush and the blue, and I'm going to add just a dot of black. The black's really, really strong. So on my palette, I'm just adding just a little teeny bit of black, so it's just slightly darker. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to continue with my horizontal strokes, and it's just going to fill in this little left-hand corner right here. So it's just going to be slightly darker than the rest of my blue. So just a little bit darker up there than everywhere else. There's horizontal strokes, not too dark. Just a little bit of black. That black gets crazy. So we just put in the darker blue in the top left corner. Now I'm cleaning my brush, and then just along the edges right here of my blue, I'm going to put a little bit of white just to kind of soften it up. So you kind of see how it's kind of pulling in some of the blue a little bit as I'm going back and forth, and that's okay. Just going to just really soften it up so it's not such a harsh blue right there. Remember, this whole thing is the sky, right? So you want to just be kind of subtle. So the white just kind of helps soften it up so it's not so crazy. So it's just straight white on my brush. I went back and forth just along the edges of the blue. Small little teeny tiny brush. We're going to dip it in the black. Now, whenever you're doing detail work and you want a nice thin line, you want to lightly touch your brush to the canvas. If you smush it into the canvas, you're going to get a fat, crazy line. So lucky for us, this is kind of like an old farm scene. So, you know, the fence is a little old and worn. And so that's going to help us with our lines. So that'll be very nice for us. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is outline where the actual land is. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come up on the right about a quarter of the way, and we're going to make a little mark. Then on the bottom left, I'm going to come in about 1/8 of the way and make a little dot right here on the bottom. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to connect this dot to this dot, and it does not have to be a perfect diagonal because this is land, so just however you want to do it. All right, so from there, we're just going to bring this right back up. So this dot where we ended, we're going to bring it back up to the left at a diagonal. And it's going to come up about 1 inch or so. So it's going to be just like that. All right, so once you have the outline of where your land is, now we're going to start putting our objects on the land. So we're going to start with our fence. So the fence is going to be just to the right of center. So I'm going to find my center. I'm going to come down, and then just to the right of center, I'm going to start with my fence. So I'm going to do a vertical line, and it could be like about 1/3 of the way up. It's really up to you how tall you want to go. You can always make it taller later. That's easy to do. So I just went just a little bit to the right of center, made a vertical line. That's my first part of the fence. So now I'm going to do 2 more vertical lines. They're going to be evenly spaced. So they're going to be about 2 inches apart. So here's the next one, just to the right. And again, it doesn't have to be perfectly straight, thank goodness, right? Because it's an old fence. And then we got another one, same distance apart, right over here. So we should have 3 vertical lines, pretty evenly spaced. All right, so now from there, we're going to go to these first 2 right here on the left. And we're going to put our horizontal attachments to them, right? So they could be attached to each other. So the first one's going to start just a little bit lower than the top. It's just going to go horizontal across to attach. And then I'm going to give it some space and do another one. So you have 2 horizontal lines. So now this bottom horizontal line that we just put in, that one's actually going to go all the way across. So I'm going to continue this guy to follow and attach the next vertical line. And then it's going to kind of follow the diagonal of the land. So then it's going to go up just a little bit, just like that. So this bottom line kind of continues up pretty parallel to your land. All right, so now we're going to go back to this first top horizontal line right here. So now that it reaches the second guy, the second vertical line, now we're going to bring from where we stopped, and we're going to do a diagonal line coming down to the right to attach to this last post. So diagonal line coming down. So we just did diagonal line. Now we're going to start about the same height as we started this horizontal, the top horizontal one on our last post. And this guy's going to go parallel to the land. It's going to go a slight diagonal going up. And then you have another diagonal guy coming down. It's going to stop just before the end of your canvas. So it's going to start right here where we began that last line we just did. It's going to go right down to the bottom. So it doesn't matter if your lines are a little wavy, a little not perfect, because that actually helps with the look. So this painting is really nice to us today. All right, so the next thing we're going to do, there's actually a wheel that's just to the left of our fence. So the height of the wheel is just a little bit higher than our horizontal line that we just put in right over here. So it doesn't have to be perfect. You're going to leave a little space in between, so I can make a little dot here where I know, and it's just going to be a circle, however big you want it to be. This is a wheel. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle. It's an old wheel, far from perfect, and that's okay. So now we're going to find the middle of your circle you just put in. I'm going to put a little dot right there so I know where the middle is. And from there, I'm going to put in the spokes. So it really doesn't matter what direction you start. I'm just going to connect the middle dot to the circle. So I'm just going to keep on going around. You can put as many as you like. You just want to make sure that you have about even space throughout. So it doesn't have to be perfect, however many. So we did our wheel, we did our circle, a dot in the center with all of the spokes coming out from the center, right? Kind of like rays. So now this wheel is actually leaning on a box of some sort, right? So you want to start right here at the middle dot that we put in. And we're going to do a slight diagonal, pretty much following the same shape as your land. So a slight diagonal, and it's going to stop about 2 inches out. It really doesn't matter. It's up to you how far you want your box to go. I'm just going to bring it just straight down. And I'm going to start doing a vertical line coming straight down here on the wheel. So that way I know that that is going to be all of my box, that whole section. And then right next to our box, there's a little teeny rock, right? So I'm just going to do a little scoop coming down on the left, just scoop. So once you have all this put in, the last thing we need to do on the land at least is put in the grass. So grass you can really put in however much you want. Just make sure that you start from the bottom and flick up. So I'm going to show you, I'll put some right over here on the left. So I'm going to start at the top of my line, right, of my land, and I'm going to start flicking up. So flick, 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 and I'm going all different directions and different heights. And you have a little patch of grass. So you want to make sure you're flicking up because the top part will be wispy like grass. If you start from the top and go down, it's not going to be wispy. So that's what kind of helps it look like grass. So I'm just going to do little clumps of grass every so often over here. I could put some over by my little box I just put in. And I'll put some near the bottom of my wheel. So really wherever you want to add it, just have fun adding some grass. You could have some just not really in a clump. So I put in the grass all along my land. And now I'm going to go to my big brush and I'm going to start filling in this land part. But before I do that, I'm going to fill in my box. So the box is really the only thing besides the land that's completely filled in at this point with black. So I'm just filling in my box, and then all this section below is all going to be black. Oh, and our rock is filled in too. Can't forget about our rock. All right, so the next thing we're gonna put in is the big tree that's coming off from the right. So I'm going to my small little brush. I'm gonna dip it in the black. Now remember, this is a tree, right? So if yours is a little bit bigger, a little smaller, if your branches go a little different way, it is okay. So I'm just gonna guide you on the tree, but really there's no right or wrong when it comes to trees, right? So with my small brush, I have my black. I'm gonna start putting in all the branches. So the trunk we actually don't really see in this painting. So this first branch is actually gonna start right here at the top of where we ended our diagonal line right here. So I'm just going to do kind of a rough diagonal line coming up towards the left. This is going to be my first branch. So it could go however far out you want. I start not going out that far, and then I could always make it go out further later. That's easy to do. So again, this one started just right here at the top of the fence, came out a diagonal. And you could have these little branches coming out. So a little bit in, I'm going to have a little guy coming out kind of a down diagonal. I mean, as we go, you could just add a lot of little guys or just leave it as it is. It's up to you. So that's the first big one. The next one is going to start a little bit higher, and it's going to also go at a diagonal to the left, and it's going to stop a little bit higher as well, just like that. Because your tree is going to take up this whole right section. And then of course you could have branches coming out on the left and the right, but a lot's going to be covered up, so you don't have to get too crazy with it. And then the last big guy I'm going to just have come up just like that. So once you have these three guys in, I'm going to start thickening up my branches. So what I mean by that is the bottom where we started is going to be the thickest part, and it's going to gradually get thinner as it comes near the end point. So I'm going to start here at the bottom. I'm just going to kind of thicken it up. So it's thickest at the bottom, and it gradually gets thinner near the tip. Okay, I'm going to do that for all of the branches. So we thickened up all the branches. So now I'm going to show you how to make leaves. So I'm actually going to go to my big brush, and it's something called stippling. So all that means is you're going to go flat against the canvas like this. Dab, 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 dab. That's stippling. Okay, so I'm going to take some black on my big brush, and I'm going to start putting some leaves out here on the edge. So I'm just going to dab, 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 dab. I'm just going to move it around. And I have little clumps, and it makes it look like leaves. How cool is that? So stippling helps give the illusion of leaves. So I'm just going to put some on some of the edges of my branches, and then I'm going to move in to really fill in that whole center section. I'm just going to have some clumps of them. So you still kind of see my branches. Dab, 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 dab. That's all I'm doing. So now this area right here is going to be really full with the leaves, the far right part. Far right corner is nice and full. Pretty much all filled in. So just as much as you want. This is your tree. So it's nice and full coming in from the right. So now the very last step of the painting, once you're done putting in your leaves, is we're going to now put in the little white clouds in here that are going to act as our stars of our flag. So I have my teeny tiny brush. I dipped it in the white, and all you're going to do is make these little wiggly lines. I'm doing a circular motion, just like this, and just every so often, I'm going to add just little squigglies. So they're not all lined. It's every so often, and they're mainly on the right side of it. Some of them will come in a little bit to the left, but they're mainly going to be along this right diagonal. It's just however many you want to put in. They're just little squigglies. Some could be bigger, some are smaller. So it's really however many clouds you want to put in there. It is completely up to you. So when you are done putting in your tree and your clouds, then you are done with your painting. So I hope you enjoyed it. I would love to see your finished product. Please tag us on Instagram and Facebook. It's #SplashArtClass @SplashArtClass. We would love to see them shown off. Also, always make sure to always check back on our website. We're always adding new live classes and of course on demand as well. Enjoy your painting.